Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today we got Matt Garabedian, aka the Phenomenal Investor, and he flew in from Fresno, California as well to share how he's doing seven figures each of the last 3 years, including 1.14 year to date, and that could be a little old because that was from a month ago.
Yeah, we've been cranking this year.
Yeah. If this is your first time tuning in, I am Steve Trang, broker and owner of Stunning Homes Realty, founder of the OfferFast Homes app, the only MLS for off-market wholesale properties. And I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires. So if that's something you're interested in, let's connect on Instagram at steve.trang. If you're excited for today's show, please give me a wave, give me a thumbs up. And as a friendly reminder, I don't charge a dime for this show. I don't make any money doing this. So here's all I ask. This is what it costs for you to listen to this show. I've been advised by a consultant that I need to get to 500 5-star reviews on iTunes to hit some of my crazy goals. So please do me a favor, go into iTunes, subscribe, and give a 5-star review. And if you can write what you like about the show, that would be even better. And don't forget, this is a live show, so please ask your questions for Matt to answer. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so first question, softball, is what got you into real estate?
I got into real estate as a necessity. You know, I got into, I was actually wholesaling subprime mortgages back in 2007, 2008. So what I would do is I'd call on real estate brokers. Mm-hmm. I'd go look at their 1003s, the credit apps, and look at this guy's DTI. But back then, if you had a pulse, you'd get 100% financing stated.
Or more.
Right. And so I was learning the financial side of the business and making money, right? And so I don't know what I was doing. But I was, learning the finance side of the business. And then around 2008, I wake up one morning and trying to log into my company email. I'm locked out. Call my manager. I'm like, hey, man, I'm trying to log into the company, website here. I'm locked out. He's like, oh, we're closed. We're shut down. I'm like, what, like for the day? He's like, no, dude, turn on CNN. Like the sky's falling. Don't you?
This is when Lehman Brothers went down?
Yeah, like the financial crash, right? Yeah. So I'm like, I went from making a pretty decent amount of money to zero. And so, slowly but surely, I didn't, at that time, I didn't think of reserves or,
Why would you? The party was never going to end.
Right, yeah. It was coming in. I was like, this is it, right? I made it. And make a long story short, I end up losing my house and going to foreclosure. My car gets repossessed. And I'm like, at the same time, God thought it would be a great time for me to introduce me to my wife. Mm-hmm. And so I said, great. Now I got to take care of myself and another lady. Like, how am I going to do this, right? And so my grandfather, who started my brokerage, is called Royal Realty in Fresno, and he always told me, Matt, get your real estate broker's license. It's a license to make money. Mm-hmm. So that kind of stuck in my head. So without much looking, going on for me, I'm like, well, I'll get my broker's license. And everyone is getting out of the business, and they're like, dude, what are you doing? Like, no one's buying real estate. No one's selling real estate. Why would you be getting in? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I got to do something, So I got my broker's license, and then I did a few things in real estate. So I started off as the traditional, showing people houses, driving around town. Quickly found out I did not care for that at all. Mm-hmm. Then I did a little bit in the commercial side, so I learned how to lease office buildings, and so I thought that was cool. But then I learned how to analyze apartments. So I started selling apartment deals to investors.
Oh.
And learned about cap rate, NOI, pro formas. I spoke the language of an investor. I liked that conversation. So it wasn't so much about the location or the neighborhood or the colors. It was, what's the bottom line? Does this make sense? I'm like, okay, I could talk that language. So as I started doing those deals, I'm making these other guys rich, right? I started thinking, well, how do I get on the other side of the table and be the one that's buying deals instead of just being a broker? Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, I don't have any money. I have no, I didn't come with a family, fortune or anything like that. So I had to figure out how I could do that. At the same time, I was in a commercial brokerage, and a guy that's been in the business some 30 years at the time, I remember him sitting at his desk, and he was just like shaking his head. When I walk in, I'm like, dude, what's wrong? He's like, I hate this business. I hate it. I've got deals that are in escrow 5 years, development deals that I don't know when anything's going to close. It's unpredictable, mm-hmm. Especially at that time, no one was doing any commercial deals. And he's like, my advice to you is, you've got to find a way to get paid consistently.
Well, I mean, that's the biggest problem with commercial, right? So it's cool that you're able to do that because I've known some guys that do a lot of commercial, and you just don't know when you're going to get paid. When you get paid, it's really well.
Sure.
But, man, you don't know when that next check's coming.
I mean, literally, he had a deal that was in escrow for 5 years. And he's like, I don't know when it's going to close, if it will at all. So that impressed upon me. I'm like, this guy's been in the game for a long time, and he's nervous.
Yeah.
So he was the actual one that turned me on to. He's like, I've been researching this. There's a way to buy property with no money. I'm like, come on, that's a scam, right? That doesn't, no. But he's like, no, I'm serious. I've been watching this guy, and he's like really flamboyant, and he's like selling these opportunities and education. I'm like, who is it? He's like, oh, Preston Ely. So that was my first introduction to kind of the wholesale. Like Preston's hanging out at a Starbucks, and he's talking about cashing checks and going to get his hair done, and I'm like, this guy's he's kind of cool.
Yeah.
What is he doing? So I learned about he's talking about wholesaling, right? So I bought one of his books. Then, short time after that, learned about Fortune Builders, which those guys are actually from Fresno. JD and Paul Asajian and Than Merrill are all Fresno guys. And so I bought into that program when I didn't have any money. I kind of structured a way to get in with having them finance me.
They financed you?
They financed me to the mastery program. They're charging like $50,000 now, but at the time I got in for like $12,000. So I put a small down payment, and I just kept making the payments to them to get the information, right? I mean, that's all I needed, information. So that's what got me in real estate.
So 2008, everything kind of crashes. And then you get into apartments.
Yeah.
Or either leasing or showing houses, apartments, and then you go into Fortune Builders and Preston Ely.
Right.
At which point did you start actively wholesaling?
Well, everyone would think, as soon as you learn, you just jump into it and you start making the money, right? Well,
that's what everyone thinks on the outside.
Yes. I'll tell you reality.
Yeah.
Reality was I went back to what I felt safe doing, brokering, because I knew that I could do that and the check would come in. I had no idea. I had no proof of concept about this whole thing, wholesaling thing. It was in theory it sounded great, but could I actually do it, and was it real? And so I put it on the shelf for about 1.5 years, 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we tend to go to the safe route, right? We want to know where that next check's coming from, and so I continued to do on what I felt I could do. So I'm up late one night, which I was doing quite a bit because I'm restless and I can't think straight because I'm stressed. So at the time I got into the Facebook group, Wholesaling Houses Full Time, which was Alex Youngblood. He still does that. So I keep seeing all these guys. I mean, like they're posting checks, $15,000, $20,000, $8,000, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, this guy doesn't have half the knowledge and experience that I have, but they're out there doing it. Like, what's holding me back?
Right.
So it's like kind of that thing that you hear. It's like when you're sick of your situation is when you finally snap and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it now. I'm tired of the excuses, and so I made a decision, and I went out and I did my first yellow letter campaign. Got a few calls. Had a guy call me. He's like, yeah, go take a look at this house. So I drive by it. Again, not much history or experience at all. I'm sitting out front, and here's the advice that I got at the time. It was, if you're not uncomfortable with the amount you're offering, if it doesn't make you physically ill, you're offering too much. That was the advice that was being given at the time.
I've seen that advice a lot, and
I wouldn't recommend it. Right? It's not solid.
It's not 100% wrong. But
right. There's
tougher.
more into it.
Yeah,
more into it. But at the time, that's what I knew.
Right.
So I'm sitting out front. It's in a rough neighborhood. I really don't know what I could actually pay for it. But I get the guy on the phone. He's like, well, what will you pay? And I sat there. It was the most uncomfortable silence I've ever felt in my life. And I worked my nerve up, and I said, I could pay you $15,000. And he says, no, I can't do that, but I could do 25. I'm like, great, let's do it. So he's like, okay, we'll get the paperwork ready. So I hang up. I said, oh my God, like I have a deal.
Yeah.
At 25, I'd have no idea if that's going to even work or not. I go back to my little office that I'm subletting, probably not much bigger than the studio, and I figure out, okay, how do I find a cash buyer? I don't have a cash buyer list. And so I put my broker hat on. I'm like, well, let me run some comps. So I ran a comp. There was a house down the street that recently sold, as like square footage, condition, et cetera. It sold for $52,000. So I get I look up the tax records. It's an LLC. At the time, I had no idea how to skip trace. I didn't know how to track down an LLC. But what I knew was there was the buyer's agent that I could contact.
Yeah.
Called the buyer's agent. I said, hey man, I got this house down the street. You recently sold one. Would your buyer be interested in another one? He says what he tells me. He says, well, how much? I said, $52,000. And this is what he tells me, Steve. He says, don't tell anybody else about the property. We'll have the money in escrow in a week. He hangs up. I'm like, no way. I'm calculating. In my mind, I'm like, I just made $27,000 on this deal. Like, no way this is going to happen. It's too good to be true.
Yeah.
So I rush back to my office. I get the paperwork, the seller sign. I send the assignment. And they both sign. Okay, wow, like this could be real. And then for about 2 weeks, I was the most nervous wreck because I'm thinking, is he going to find out if I'm making money? Is the seller real? Are they actually going to show up? And so I was calling my title officer, like, hey, is everything going cool? Like I'm stressed out, right? And lo and behold, seller signs, buyer funds. They call me, Matt, we have a check for you. And that was my proof of concept. And at that point, I never looked back. And
when was this exactly?
That was 2010.
Okay. And then one thing you said that was really interesting was that it took you a while to, even though you knew what you knew, you didn't necessarily take action until you felt like your back was against the wall.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are really, they want to do this. Sounds great. But they're reluctant to take the first step, and we call it kind of like YouTube University, where they're just watching videos. And I love that they're watching the videos.
Right.
But at some point, they have to take action.
Sure.
So, like, what advice do you give someone that's doing a little bit too much learning and not enough doing?
Overanalyzing anything is never going to be profitable, right? I mean, we can all look at different ways to skin a cat, but until you take action, you're never going to get to your goal. Right, you can't skip over all the steps and get a check. It's impossible, right? So, just understand that anyone can do this business. Right. This is not rocket science, right? What you have to understand is this business is based on failure, and it's lessons, right? So we fail forward in the business to learn and grow our skill set. So it's okay to fail. I tell the guys in my office, especially a new guy, I say, go out and get your first 100 no's. I want you to get 100 no's because more than likely you're probably going to get a yes within those 100 no's. Yeah. And if you get to 100 no's, your pitch is going to be better. You're going to learn how to build rapport. You're going to understand objections. You're going to be able to answer, professionally. And so you're going to up your game. Your skill set's going to increase by getting rejected.
Right.
I come from a baseball background, so there's Hall of Famers making millions of dollars failing 7 out of 10 times. You're a 300 hitter if you're failing 7 times. So I take it like, hey, fail. If you fail 7 out of 10 times in this business, you're making millions of dollars.
Doing really well.
Yeah.
So last week we had on the show Don Costa.
Yeah.
So, we haven't had anyone from Fresno on the show, and now we got 2 back-to-back.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a sneaky town.
But one question I have to ask you is what makes your situation or your operation different than some of your peers in your community?
Well, the way that I run my business is more of a self-development company. So I like to attract and bring in people that I could kind of mold and develop and share with them the experiences that I have as an owner. I'm a man of faith, right? So I tell people right off the bat, I said, God is my CEO, and I know maybe that's not PC in this day and age, but for me, I have to be in line with people need to be in line with my core values because I am open and honest about my faith. I put all my trust in the Lord. And so for me to bring someone in, they need to know that I'm operating at a different level. I come in and I understand there's adversity, there's issues that are going to take place in the business. It's hard, right? But in the midst of the trial and tribulation, in the midst of our failures, when we have something solid like our faith, we can take on that adversity and continue to grow through it. Because if we don't have something to hold on to, this business will spit you up and eat you out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm a living proof of that. I've gone through many trials and tribulations. And so I'm here today stronger for that because of, my faith. But what to answer your question even more in sync is, I'm a hands-on guy, right? So I get in the trenches with my guys. They celebrate in the wins and the losses. Mm-hmm. So I demand a lot from them, their ethics, their commitment, their workability, showing up and going through the trenches essentially. So, as you get higher and hire more people, you start to get further away from, the front line, mm-hmm. right? Like a general that, is not with this front line is ineffective in some cases. So scaling and growing is important, but you got to be able to stay, really in touch with the people that are the face of your company.
I like that a lot, and I think we have that in common, that a lot of our guys, one of our 5 core values is growth, meaning personal development.
Sure.
And the moment you tell me you already got to figure it out is the moment I'm looking to replace you.
Yeah, that's a scary place to be when you stop learning.
Yeah. 100%.
I learn every day. Yeah. I learn every day.
Well, we were talking before the show.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things that we were learning recently.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah. So, doing my research before the show, there's another licensed realtor named Matthew Garabedian in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Garabedian Realty Group.
There's a funny story. So at least 5 or 6 times a week, I get asked, are you related to this Garabedian or that Garabedian? And I say, look, it's like Smith.
Is it?
Yeah.
Doesn't look like a Smith.
Go figure, right? But the truth is, I'm Armenian, and so we have a very common last name. And so if you go to like Glendale, California, or L.A., or Fresno, it's like a little Armenia. So there's a lot of Garabedians, but no relation. There's another Garabedian in my town. Another agent. Yeah.
It's just funny to see.
It is.
Okay, so one thing you mentioned again earlier, like perseverance, is something is super important to you. Mm-hmm. So you said that you've overcome some big failures. Like, what are some of those failures that you've overcome?
Okay. Well, geez, we have an hour here.
We got another 40 minutes.
Okay. Just in business, right? So, for example, when I learned about, we can actually scale and grow a team, you got to go out and hire. Well, that was weird for me because I was a solopreneur guy, kind of like a lone wolf attitude. I'm like, I'm going to go do it all myself. No one can do it better than me. But then I learned about how these guys are scaling and growing through hiring, right? Mm-hmm. So I ended up hiring 2 guys, and I just poured into them. I mean, I was just spending, my whole summer, it felt like, away from my kids and my family, and just transferring all this knowledge that I had, right? And I overpaid them, and I did a lot of things that was just rookie mistakes. So I think we're starting to roll, right? We're starting to grow. My dad died. 2 days later, both these guys walk in. They had this like kind of straight face, and I thought like, they're gonna tell me they're sorry about my dad passing, and they're like, with no emotion, they're like, we're leaving you. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, we're gonna go do our own thing. And so like, I felt like I was crushed. Like that whole trainer competition thing, mm-hmm. Became real. And so I had this like, wow, like, did I just train my competition? These guys are gonna go out. They learned everything that I taught them, and now I'm back to ground zero, being a solopreneur. Mm-hmm. Like I've spent all this time growing them. Lo and behold, they were out of the business 6 months later. Mm-hmm. But, at that time it was scary because I'm like, I have to start all this over. But in hindsight, the growth was this, like now I won't make that mistake because I want to document now. I want to, have a hiring process. I learned about, skills and aptitude tests that we give, a Colby or these types of exams that, is this guy going to stick with me? Is he really going to go out and do his own thing? Now I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like most people will probably end up thinking they can go out and do their own thing, and maybe they will. But to be a business owner is a whole different thing. Like you have to be cut from a different cloth.
It's funny. So I've spoken on this topic 3 weeks ago in Houston, Wholesaling Live, and one of the things I talked about is one of the most valuable skills is leadership.
Sure.
And there's this fear when you're newer, right? When you only know sales and marketing,
mm-hmm.
there's this fear that you're training your competition.
Yep.
And it's not until you realize, like, this sucks. Running a business sucks.
Right? Yeah.
And you got to train people.
Mm-hmm.
And sales and marketing is predictable. I put this much dollars in, I'm going to get about this many dollars out.
Right.
Once you get the systems, okay, you can still kind of automate things. You get the people, that's a massive wild card.
Unpredictable.
Yeah. And that's the thing that people, they can learn your systems, but they can't replace you. They can't replace your people.
Right.
And that's what's something that it's interesting here. You talk about how you like, man, these guys are just going to I'm training my competition, but then you realize, yeah, once they became your competition, they realize this is terrible.
Yeah, it is. It's tough.
And they're out of business.
It's tough. But when you're in it, you think, oh my gosh, but then you forget how much work you took to get to that place.
Right.
You got to be a big boy or a big girl to write those checks when deals aren't coming in.
Mm-hmm.
If my American Express bill comes, they don't care if I close the deal or not.
Right.
Like that marketing is going out, we paid for it. If it's not returning, I got to write a check. I got to write a check for the office. I got to write a check for the people that are on payroll. So all that, they don't look at. They look at, oh, this guy bringing these deals in, but they don't understand that.
They see the revenue.
Yeah.
They don't see the expenses.
Expenses are, they're there. Let me tell you.
Yep.
Another quick story was as we kind of start, getting into, you get some success in wholesaling, right? And then you see the shiny object syndrome, which is, man, I want to be a flipper. I want to be a fix and flip guy because those guys are making the real money. Mm-hmm. Not knowing that, the cost of the holding cost and the contractors that they have to, go through and the time and all the stuff that goes into it, you don't realize that until you feel it, right? So, one mistake I made was I got shiny object, even though my wholesaling business was working. One day I woke up, I'm like, I'm fixing and flipping now. So I end up starting 5 or 6 projects. I had a gentleman in my town, and he came to me. He's an old school Portuguese man, very nice guy, but rough around the edges. And he'd built this, massive apartment holding in Fresno, fresh off, the old country with no shoes, worked his way up through hard work. He says, Matt, you're really good at finding deals. I've got about $1 million in cash. I want you to partner with you. I want to partner with you 50-50. And, I'm like, okay, sure. So we start doing projects together, and, he's doing one deal at a time, but we've got like 4 sitting. And I'm like, the speed of this is most important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not holding all these projects. That's not, good business sense. Well, we're doing a few deals, and at the time he was going through some a potential like marital problems, like a divorce, and he tells me, I'd rather keep everything in your name, and the deals are in your name, the money's coming back into my account, and being kind of young in business, you don't foresee any potential problems with that. You're like, man, this is great. I got a guy like funding me, like we're doing deals. So we're doing projects together, and I'm holding, a considerable amount of money. And one night I get a call, 4 o'clock in the morning, from his son. He's like, my dad just got killed in a car accident. I'm like, oh wow, like this is terrible, and he got killed by a drunk driver. Well, I have all this cash and it's all in my name, right? There's no agreement, there's no JV, there's nothing in writing. 2 days later, I'm getting a knock at the door of my office of the wife, and she's like, I want all the money. And I know you have millions of it. I'm like, wait, what is that? I don't. Like, I have all of this documented, and, I was just trying to do the guy a favor. I said, the great news is I have all of your money plus the profit. Mm-hmm. And she's like, no, there's way more than you're leading on. I know that he came and gave you, like, actual cash money. I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. Like, you can't take cash into a title company and close a deal.
Right.
Like, that's weird, right? Like, that's not going to happen. So what the point of it is, I'm trying to run a business, I'm trying to stay focused, and I'm just getting, her attorneys, harassing me. I'm getting letters, I'm getting demands, like turn over all your bank statements, turn over we're going to freeze your accounts. I mean, you can name it, and so as a business owner, you start to feel that pressure.
100%.
Right? And so most people would probably tap out. They're like, this is too much for me to do. But again, it's taught me growth. It's taught me to keep my faith. It's taught me to learn from my mistakes. So now when I get into an agreement, it's in writing and it's ironclad, right? Because who would think their partner is going to die?
Right.
But it happens.
Yeah.
And so these are some of the few experiences that I've had that have got me here today. And the last 2 months have been tough for me. Really tough, like going through and changing some of our marketing methods, because I'm an old school direct mail guy. But the response rate's down, the cost is heavy, and so when we're not meeting or exceeding our expectations, that money's going out, and all of a sudden you're seeing your bank account go low, and then we're like, wow, what's going on? Mm-hmm. So it's just it's interesting, right?
Right.
There's ebbs and flows.
Oh, 100% there's ebbs and flows. So what does your organization look like today?
Organization-wise, I've got 4 acquisition guys. I've got a office manager, processor. I've got one guy that in the field handling stuff, and then I'm still in the disposition seat. I have great relationships with my buyers, so that's something that I probably the last to exit. But again, goes back to that scaling model, like how far do I want to exit from my business, because there's always that fear of, the further away you get, and I made that mistake, there's things that fall through the crack.
Right.
So
I've got that fear too. That's one of the reasons, honestly, why I haven't gone virtual.
Right.
It's like, how do you maintain your culture across the country?
Yeah.
Guys that you're not seeing maybe even once a year.
It's very real. It's a very real concern.
So, but because I'm not the only one with that concern. So 4 acquisition guys, 1 office manager, 1 disposition person.
Yep.
And everything's direct mail. Are you 100% direct mail?
No. I'm in, I have a pretty solid SEO. I've got the PPC. I've got direct mail going. We're doing cold calling now. We're turning that on more. And texting. Yeah.
You got to be careful. Stratton's out there.
Yeah, Stratton's killing it.
Stratton's out there. He is killing it.
Yeah.
So be careful.
We're doing a deal right now.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, some apartments.
Gotcha. Yeah. Michael Ray says, happy to hear what you're talking about with overcoming your challenges. Kyle Fetterman's got a question. How are you finding people that work for you?
That would be the hardest thing you could do. I was just with Sean Terry before this, and we were talking about this, and hiring and firing, like you mentioned, Steve, we're dealing with personalities, right? And so it's just like anything in a sales call. You're finding prospects, and you're basically making your offer and seeing if there's a fit. It's the same thing with hiring. You've got to interview 25, 30 people to find 5 or 6 that may work, and then narrow it down to 1 or 2, however you're hiring. To answer the gentleman's question, I mean, we do stuff. We put stuff on Indeed, Craigslist. I do some videos talking about we're always looking to hire. I'm always looking for talent. So there isn't like one perfect way, but I would say Indeed's been a good source for us to get quality resumes and having those quality conversations.
Yeah, Indeed's actually worked out well for me very recently, and I hadn't been trying that. I tried like Wise Hire and all these other things, and I listened to Nick Perry speak about how he uses Indeed, and that's been a game changer for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's actually going to be on the show in the next few weeks talking about how he does that. So what would you say? Do you have a specialty in your market?
I mean, I'm known as the wholesaler, if you will, because I've kind of put myself into that.
There's not other wholesalers out there?
Well, in terms of I think, wow, I kind of pigeonholed myself into that, because other wholesalers sometimes won't send me deals because they think, oh, Matt maybe won't close on this. But we I close on properties all the time. I'm a professional investor. That's what I say now. I have my main disposition strategy is wholesale. It just fits my model and what I like. But to answer your question?
It does answer your question, or it does answer my question. But you're just hitting anything and everything in Fresno.
No, we're in from Bakersfield to Sacramento. So I'm covering a good majority of the state.
So you and Don are running into each other.
We don't run into each other that much as you would imagine. And Don and I have a good working relationship. So there's a few times that he's called me. He's like, hey, we're working on this deal. Like, can you take it, and we'll give you the next one. But still waiting for that call, Don. But there's so many deals out there, and it's like you're in the hotbed here, right? So if everyone can get a piece of the pie in Arizona, I can imagine when we're in California or in the Valley, there's plenty of other guys that are doing deals. So
there's only been I want to say twice
that you run into competition.
That I ran into a friend.
Yeah, so there's
and then all the stuff that we
then imagine all the other deals that we never know about, or our competitors know about. So it goes back to that mindset approach, right? The abundance mentality versus scarcity, and that kind of goes back to really what I wanted to share here today, Steve. Is there is a lot of shiny objects out there. There's a lot of people that are striving to do more deals, gain more clout, be the next guy, do more deals. I mean, it's just on and on, right? I personally have gone through a transition in my life where I got to the point where I was thinking, man, I need to get that Rolex. I need to get that Porsche. I need to get this. Because I put my identity into those things, right? So it was a really important thing for me to prove myself.
Yeah.
And I got to a small degree of success, and I found that none of that was fulfilling.
Yeah.
I found that it actually impeded my growth. I got to this point of success that I felt was a degree of success for myself, and I shut off. I went through what I call my wilderness period, where I literally checked out mentally, emotionally, physically in my business. So I'd show up to my office, and the guys would be like, "What's up, Matt?" I'd be like, "Hey, go and shut my door," and then I'd start reading the Bible. And so God started working with me about showing me. He actually put like eternity in my heart. So what that means is I look at things now where, a deal here, a deal there, it doesn't matter to me anymore. What I'm working on and where my calling is to share my story, because I've had struggles and I've had some success, but putting my faith in the Lord has brought me to a place of utter peace and joy. I don't get mad when I don't get a deal anymore. I don't get upset when I see others winning. I enjoy having fellowship. Michael, who's watching, is another guy that I've just connected with about a month ago. We don't ever talk about real estate. Mm-hmm. When I get on the phone with him, we're talking about what the Lord's done for us in our life. And Michael has an unbelievable story and from where he's come from and the success that he's having. We just share our joy with that. We have our fellowship. And as I connected with even Sean coming over here, we talked about how great God is and what he's doing for our life. And so that's the message I want to tell people is, it's okay to have success. It's okay to strive. But God gave all of us a special gift, like he gave everyone a special fingerprint. So really figure out what God gave you, because you have a certain gift that I don't, Steve. Like, you have a great platform here. A guy like Michael's great at running rehabs, and he's giving guys that are from less fortunate situations jobs, and he's showing them how honest work is going to pay. And if there's he told me the other day they got red tagged on a job, and the guys were like freaking out, like, what are we going to do? He's like, no, it's okay, because I got to, the Lord provides. Yeah. And so that's what that's what brings me joy and happiness. And I like to talk to other entrepreneurs, because I've been in some big rooms. I'm part of the Arate Syndicate, which is a big group run by Andy Frizella and Ed Milet. And I've seen guys in there that are worth tens, 50, hundreds of millions of dollars that have everything on the outside. The world can see as success, but inside they're scared, they're full of fear, they're empty and sad and depressed. And this is, I've seen this with guys all over the real estate business, that guys that, I'll never say a name here out of respect, but guys that on the outside are just absolutely killing the game. But since I've developed relationships with them, I'm trying to share what the Lord has been doing for me, how to bring that peace. Because when we put our identity in things, when we put our identity into a bank account, and that bank account goes down, our world starts rocking. Mm-hmm. Like where are we going with this? Like you start thinking I'm a failure. I've built nothing. And you play this game, and you start getting these attacks, and things are happening in your mind, and it's not a place to be. It's no fun. So where I'm going forward is I'm telling the truth. I'm telling people that there's more to life than your next deal. Use this platform that you have, your abilities, your skill sets, to help others. Can you imagine being able to buy a house from someone, get them out of a bad situation, and give them a new start? I think that's amazing, right? Or you take people that are thinking it's all about money and fortune and the watch and the clothes, and tell them, look, those things are okay, but there's a bigger picture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so
those things are great, but you have other purposes.
100%.
On the planet.
Yeah, we weren't created to just show up, do some wholesale deals, and flip, and then die.
Yeah.
We're here today, gone tomorrow. We're a piece of dust, and so if the Lord wills, most men can live to their 80s, right? I'm 40, you're 40, we're at our halfway mark. So now I'm thinking about how I went from success to significance.
Yeah.
Because more money isn't impressive. More marketing strategies isn't impressive. You've had some amazing guests. By the way, this is an amazing platform you have here, and I'm super thankful to be a part of it and to share my story. But someone needs to step up and tell people, Your identity is not in the money. Your identity is not in how many deals you're doing or how much money you have. Your identity is what God's given you, your purpose, what you're doing with it, and how you're spreading light, joy, and the news of the gospel.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is something there, though, right? Like, it's kind of hard in that you don't want to be measured. You don't want your identity, right, to be your vehicles, your watches, your money. I completely agree with that. Mm-hmm. But there's certain things you have to accomplish.
Sure.
In order to spread your message. Right?
Yes.
Like, whatever your passion, your purpose, your message.
Yes.
It's harder to do those things if you're not
successful. Good point. Don't put that money or that success above your beliefs. So for me, it's God, right? Yeah. So I know that if my business is down or my business is up, I have faith in Him. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is, I don't want to get it confused, because I'm not saying you should have faith in God because He's going to shower you with more deals and money. Mm-hmm. What God does is give you that peace and that joy and that the word is really peace, because as you grow in business, I don't care who you are. You talk to a Steve Jobs or to a Sean Terry or to an Ed Milet or to an Andy Frisella, degrees of success are going to bring more and more adversity. Yeah. Okay? No one that's been successful has not gone through adversity and temptation. So how do we as individuals weather that? Well, you've got to keep Him first.
Yeah. And,
in my faith, it says, all things will be added unto you if you keep your eyes on heaven, right? The long term, the vision that I have is eternity. So none of this I'll trade all this because I'm at peace with my Lord.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing too, right, is having your identity not attached to status.
Of course. Yeah.
I think that's probably a big thing there. So one thing you mentioned earlier is you were talking about personal development. Mm-hmm. Is something that's super important to you and your team, and it's super important to me and my team as well. How do you what are you getting them to do? Mm-hmm. Right? How are you developing your team?
I'm a pretty avid reader, mm-hmm. so I definitely will be telling my guys to read this, read that. I ask them to write down their goals and talk, and we talk about them, right? What are your goals? Where do you see yourself going in the next 5, 10, 15 years? Okay, so the power of the mind is a very real thing. So I see, including myself, you go through this, right? So the goal is to try to get here, mm-hmm. A slow incline, and don't get too high and don't get too low, right? Because right here is where the magic happens, because you're on a steady growth. You're improving your mind, your body, your spirit, and all that stuff just is a byproduct of business is a byproduct of that. Success mm-hmm. in business is a byproduct of that. You can't, I was at my heaviest I was about a year or two ago. So I knew that what's the point of becoming wealthy or rich if I'm going to end up being sick? Yeah. So I know that's out of line, right? Like, I can't just be eating and not taking care of my body and making money, because I'm just going to end up using that money to pay for my hospital visits. Plus, you have kids, and you want to be around for them. So to answer your question, it's you have to encompass everything. You've got to sharpen your mind. Number one, you got to sharpen your mind, because that is the most important tool you have. A sharp mind will take across the gamut. You'll be able to have a sharp mind to get in the gym no matter when you wanted. Having a sharp mind will say, hey, you got to get that reading in. A sharp mind you'll think clearer on deals.
So do you have a book club in the office? Do you have everyone, we're reading this book for the month? How do you?
I tell people what I'm reading, mm-hmm. and so for an example, I buy 10, 11 copies of books that I like. And then people that come into my office or that I meet, instead of giving them my business card, I have a little stamp. It says, it says Matt at Phenom Investor. And my favorite verse in the Bible is Hebrews 11:6. It says, "But without faith, it is impossible to please Him. For those who come to God must believe that He is, and is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him." That's the message I want to leave with someone, mm-hmm. along with that particular book that I suggest. So instead of a business card, right, they're not going to remember that, but hey, this guy, he gave me this book and he put a Bible verse in it. I don't know where he's coming from, but it sounds like, it works for him, so maybe I'll check it out. I'm planting seeds.
Yeah.
I'm planting seeds. And so and again, it goes back to, who I bring into my circle, right? I tell people what my faith is. I tell people that I expect them to do their job, to go the extra mile, to work hard, to get into the fight, because that's what it is.
Is there a particular book you've given more than any other?
Well, going forward, it will be the Bible. But I think the book that I've given most is The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
I have not read it. What do you like about that book?
It's excellent. I mean, it's all about sales, and it weaves into it, God's message in that.
Yeah. So I didn't get the chance to ask. The second half of Kyle's question is, do you use VAs?
No.
All right. And guys, remember, Matt's done, $1 million each of the last 3 years. So I want you guys to leverage this opportunity to ask him the questions that I have not asked yet. Daniel Martinez wants to know, what will be your future goals in the next coming years?
Just continue serving the Lord. Continue to be a role model to my boys. Be a better husband. Instill values into my kids that I want them to be as they grow and become fathers themselves. And really, it may sound counterculture, but for me, serving the Lord's everything. And business is a byproduct of that. So
it's not a surprise, right? Like the two books, every top as a Fortune 500, the two books that every CEO has is the Bible and Think and Grow Rich. So it's not a surprise, right, that it's a byproduct.
Every principle if you read any sales book, for the most part, you could draw the principles that came from the Bible.
Well, what surprised me was I read, what was it? It's one of Dave Ramsey's book. I want to say EntreLeadership. I can't say for sure. But he was talking about these basic principles, and then he quotes the verse in the Bible. I was like, I had no idea.
It's amazing, right?
How many of these verses were there that, we consider it as sage wisdom, but you have no idea that they're actually in the Bible as well. It's kind of crazy.
Well, it's God's living word, so it wasn't something that was written 2,000 years ago and is obsolete. It's actually more relevant today than it ever was in any time period. Yeah. So I'd encourage anyone that's listening that may have never written or read the Bible, start with a proverb or a psalm. And if you want to get real deep, we can talk about that. Please reach out to me. I'd love to talk about that with anybody listening. That's my goal. Yeah. If I could turn someone to learn about who God is, He created us. We're sitting here on this earth that's spinning at 65,000 miles per hour. We're something like 90 million miles away from the sun. We're over here talking about real estate, which is a very small thing in grand schemes. We're not here by accident, right? So that's what I want to impress upon all you listeners. It's not about real estate. It's about who we are.
So I do have some more real estate questions.
Okay.
Marketing. How much are you spending a month? We're talking about direct mail, which I don't know what it is about California, but everyone loves direct mail in California.
Right, yeah.
So
we're stubborn out there.
Hey, if it works, I know you guys are tracking your KPIs.
Yeah.
Right. So what are you spending right now in monthly marketing?
Well, we scaled it down, but as of probably 3 months ago, we were about $50,000 a month.
Yeah, that's just in marketing.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the bulk of that? Is that direct mail?
Bulk of it was direct mail. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then what is your monthly overhead?
Well, I have a couple different LLCs, so we're talking about just business overhead. I run my cars through there and cell phone and all that. Mm-hmm. So, I'd probably say, let me retract that. I'm sorry. I would say all in is 50, and I would say 38,000 of it, 40,000 of it is marketing.
Gotcha. So Jason Toledo wants to know, what strategies did you incorporate in the beginning of your wholesaling business to help you scale your company to where it is today?
I just leveled up my circle of influence.
Yeah. Can you expand more on that? Yeah.
So being in Fresno, right? I'm born and raised there. It's a smaller community. It's based on agriculture, so that there's no big business. Coming to Arizona, you see, a lot of different, Fortune 500 companies and big business, right? You go to Fresno, there's like one. I'm going to call it a skyscraper. It's like a little building downtown, but you don't get that big ebb and flow of business, right? It's a lot of farmland, very rich farmers there, but old school mentality, right? So if I was going to go seek out a mentor, it'd be hard for me to find a mentor in Fresno that I've come across that I would say, I want to pay you for your time. So what I knew when I was going through my, my early growth, I'm like, I need to figure out what to do. So since when I started, I invested in myself. So why stop? So I continued to invest in myself. So I got in a room that I was blown away, frankly, because we're talking about guys that sitting at a table that are sharing the same struggles that I have, sharing the same growing pains that I have, and they're open and honest. They're like, dude, do this, do that. This is what I did. This is what I did. And then you've got guys that are at a whole nother level telling you, don't do that, do this. Go ahead, and they kind of give you permission, right? So when I got there, they kind of gave me permission to pour gasoline on my marketing. Because at first I'm like, I don't want to spend that much money. We're like, well, dude, check your mindset. It's not an expense; it's an investment.
Yeah.
It's an investment in yourself. If you can't learn to invest in yourself, like, who are you banking on? You are you. So if you can't pull some money out of your pocket and go to a guy like Steve to learn how to scale up, you're not going to make it. You're gonna go the YouTube route of trying to get all this free information. You're gonna get even more confused, and you might get there, but it's gonna be way more expensive.
It's gonna take you longer.
100%.
So you mentioned Arete. Is that
Arete? Yeah.
Arete? Or is there anything else, or is that the only one?
I am in 2 different real estate masterminds, and then the Arete Syndicate. Yeah.
Okay. You want to share what the other 2 are?
Yeah. One of them was the boardroom. That's where my with Sean, and then Mark Evans is another. He has the DM family. So I've been with Mark for 3 years. He's helped me out a lot in my growth mindset, and he's an unbelievable man, father. I call him. He's a great friend of mine. So he's definitely someone that I've developed a great relationship with, and he's taught me. I mean, he's been doing virtual since that word virtual came out. So he's been able to like travel the world and have this unbelievable business. But it's invaluable to get into those relationships and the other guys that come with it. I mean, I have guys that are doing big things in the business, but where the magic happens and when guys take off their cape, if you will, and get real. And that's my experience. Like, perception's one thing, but reality's another.
For sure. Raheem Owens wants to know, what are some of your daily habits that have helped you scale?
Well, my daily habits, I get into the gym first thing in the morning. I get my workout in because that just clears my mind, and definitely doing my prayer, my Bible reading, I do that daily, and then it puts me into a frame of mind to go in and kind of go into battle, right? Like, I mean, we gotta work hard. We gotta get on the phones. We gotta make offers, and to scale, guys, that's a fancy word. But really, don't be in the need to scale, right? Everyone wants to go from point A to Z their first year in real estate. Don't compare your chapter 1 to someone's chapter 15, right? I'm only speaking out of experience because I've done the same thing. I'm looking at guys, why they do this? Wow, they're big over here. Like, I need to get there. And I'm thinking, man, dude, like, you've only been trying to build a business since really 2016.
Right.
Like, barely 3 years. That's not that much. So you got to keep time as the if all things being equal, right? Someone's got time on you, that's a game changer. Right? So you got to keep the perspective in order, and then start doing what is right for you, not what you're hearing from the competitor or a guy on YouTube or Instagram. You scale when it's right, not because it's the thing to do.
Yeah. Well, and it's something that you and I talked about earlier too, right? Offline, is that I met someone this past weekend that's making $500,000 a month.
Right.
I was like, man, how did they get there? And then, well, he's been doing this longer than I've been alive.
Exactly. So that is the equilibrium. I mean, dude, that will, it's real. I'm telling you, you can't force it. You can't force appreciation, and you can't force growth. Because if you try to force it, you're going to build it on quicksand. It's going to crumble.
Yeah.
So get your core here's your answer. Establish your core values, and don't waver on them. Get really firm on them. Then you hire based on, and you fire based on your core values, right? So if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. Establish your core values, post them on the wall, tell people about them, and then find the people that are going to be in line with your core value and then your vision. is a huge part. What I've learned is your vision has to be big enough for everybody to fit inside of it, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're saying, well, I want to do 10 deals a month or 15 deals, that's cool, but a lot of guys might not fit inside that vision, right? Because they're not feel like there's enough growth for them.
Or it's maybe not enough for them to eat.
Right.
In their vision as well.
Exactly. So some of the biggest success, story, like I just saw Dean Graziosi's office. Like, what's that guy's vision? It wasn't 10 or 15 deals a month.
No.
I mean, I was blown away by, what his operation. That's just like his media and his, education piece. And, but credit to Dean, he was in there on the whiteboard teaching. I mean, this guy's worth, I don't know how many millions of dollars, right? And he's there working.
How many tens of millions of dollars?
Tens of millions.
Yeah. So Anthony Walters wants to know how many deals per month before you suggest outsourcing and hiring?
How many deals a month before you outsourcing for me is, I can't speak to it because I've never done it. I like to have some control of it. We are just starting to hire virtual cold callers because I like to hear guys on the phone of like, this guy has it or not, mm-hmm. right? Because again, you can hire a virtual cold calling team, but if they don't know how to build rapport and close, you're going to burn through some money, or you might be getting a bunch of leads that are not motivated, mm-hmm. and then you're just filling up your pipeline with nonsense.
Right.
So for me, I would say, control as much as you can. And then if it starts to be very profitable, then you could outsource. But I mean, I like to hear guys in my office on the phone because there's growth there. I can say, hey, why didn't you say this? Or how come you didn't say this? Or dude, get on the phone. Mm-hmm. Some guys just show up and sit there. And I'm like, you're not going to cut it.
No, you're not going to.
You got to dial.
So for real deals, wants to know, are your guys' salary or percentage based on the closing?
I pay my guys on a commission basis, and then like my processor office guys a salary. I pay my guys, up to a certain point, they'll get $1,500 a deal, and then once we reach a certain amount, they get 10%.
Okay. Is there I guess over 15,000?
30.
Over 30.
Yeah, it's 29,000 or less, just 15 grand. Because we'll do deals that we make $5 or $6 grand on. That's like a loss for me after marketing expense, but I'm still paying my guy $1,500.
Oh, that's solid.
Right, so that keeps them eating, right? And sometimes I'll take an L, just to keep the train moving. But we'll knock off a deal for 30 or 50 or whatever, and I'll give them a 10% bonus or whatever. But that's kind of and our average deal size is 19 grand. So it's not like we're knocking down $50,000 wholesales all day.
No, 19 grand's pretty solid though. And he also wants to know, what's the first position he should hire when hiring?
An assistant. Because, I don't know how you like to operate, but for me, there's things that I don't like doing. And so if someone can put me on a schedule, that would be ideal. For me, the first two people I hired were acquisition guys, right? And then they quit or went out and compete, and then, was like, I don't want to hire anymore. And then I ended up hiring a guy, and poor guy, he's still with me today. He's a great guy. Love him to death. But I didn't pay attention to him for the first 3 months. Mm-hmm. I just said, go call. And all of a sudden, he's bringing deals, right? He started doing deals. And I'm like, okay, I put a little bit more on his plate, a little bit more. Now he's running my company.
Yeah.
And so you just never know who you're hiring.
It's terrible to hire someone that way.
Mm-hmm.
But we've all done it when we first started.
Yeah.
And you'll find that the ones that could survive then were your best people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I was a terrible manager when I first started.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I fired a lot of people. I let a lot of people go. But man, the ones that could survive with my crap management, now they're running my operations now that we have a real company.
Yeah, go figure, right?
Yeah.
I mean, none of us, we all get into being an owner. None of us have experience hiring. Mm-hmm. You have to get kind of burned in the process to know what you don't want to hire.
We have to fail, just like you have to fail in your first seller's appointment. You got to fail on the phones.
Like I said, this business is designed around failure. Yeah. So the quicker and faster you could fail, and I don't even want to say fail, learn. Yep. The quicker you can learn is the quicker you're going to get to your goals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Garza wants to know, which specific source are you getting most of your deals from?
What specific source?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's evenly matched across direct mail and SEO. Mm-hmm. I've been working on SEO since 2013, so I have a pretty strong
pretty good head start.
Yeah. So that's been a good thing for me. So I'd say, the internet brings in deals, and so does direct mail. And now that we're kind of transitioning out of being so heavy in direct mail, I'm interested to see where the new lead source will come. Maybe it's going to be through, texting or cold calling. So it's to be determined.
And what's your ARV range are you recommend marketing to when starting out to get decent spreads?
Dude, that's not a one size fits all.
That's probably a market
question.
Specific question.
Yeah, for us, we're still in that FHA 250 and below is the sweet spot. I don't like to mess with stuff over like 350.
Me neither. What is your biggest struggle right now?
Oh, good question. My biggest struggle right now. I'm at a pretty good place, honestly, and the irony of that is I've had probably the last 2 or 3 months have been some of the worst I've had in business because we're going in that transition where direct mail started to be ineffective, and so it just it took a chink out of my armor money wise. So in the past I'd probably be freaked out, but I'm in a good place right now, spiritually and mentally, that I know that this is just a transition, and the Lord's preparing me to get me to the next level. I really believe that because I've gone through so much to get to this point. I'm like, dude, you didn't take me this far to take me this far. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there's some testing going on and some things that are, happening for a reason. But what's kept it strong through it is my faith. Again, I keep touching on that because it's so important for me guys to understand that. And then lo and behold, I kind of just give it to him, and now deals are flowing in. We're working on some big deals right now.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you did or you're doing a multifamily deal.
Yeah. Doing a deal with Strat on a multifamily, and then a couple more multifamily deals in the pipe. I'm actually doing some duplex, triplex stuff that no rehab, buy it for $250, sell it for $340 in a week type stuff. So, and multifamily in my area is like through the roof. Like, I don't get it. It doesn't cash flow. I don't understand what they're thinking, but it's appraising and they're selling. Probably in about 4 years, I'll probably be buying it back.
Yeah, I mean, who cares, right? As long as they're buying it. Matt Larson, he was on the show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Matt's in the DM fam.
Yeah.
And
he was saying that he's cleaning it up with multifamily.
Right. Well, Tim Brott's done a great job of doing that model where he's raising money and he went from 0 to 60 in like fast. Mm-hmm. He's holding a huge portfolio now. So I love multifamily. That's where apartments is, you could doing like a fourplex is like 4 deals. If you're making $10,000 a door on an assignment fee, it's $40,000, right, or more. So it just kind of makes sense. Right? Yeah.
Well, our assignment fees are definitely bigger with multifamily.
Absolutely, and it's easier to sell.
Yeah.
And there's a lot less people fishing in that pond.
Yeah.
All
right. So I'm going to let you think about the last thoughts you want to leave the listeners with while I make a quick announcement. So, guys, I'm finishing the year in New Orleans with Chris Rude, December 6th through 8th. That's Skillathon. If you want to check that out, is bit.ly/2019skill. And then Max and I have been getting blown up about our 2.5-day workshop where we go over everything in our business. So if you want to make 2020 your year, go to disruptors.com to see if the workshop will make sense for you. And tomorrow we got a special guest, Tang Nguyen, coming in from Dallas. He's going to talk about creative financing. And then we got Kyle Weiler next week for this show. So what were some last thoughts you want to leave the listeners with?
Yeah. My last thoughts with you guys is you guys were not born as an accident. We're all put on this earth for a reason. Like I said, we have different fingerprints. We have different skills and abilities, God-given abilities. I pray that you find your abilities, you get close and find out God's purpose for you and put your faith in the Lord. That's everything. And you'll be surprised how everything else comes together after you do that. If you put money first, if you put business first, if you put deals first, remember, guys, there's always a trade-off. If you want more success, you're trading something, either time with family, your health, your happiness, your well-being. But when you put the Lord first, there's no trade-off. everything comes added to that. So I leave you guys. God bless you. I'm happy to be in this business. I'm thankful, Steve, that you allowed me on to give me this platform. And I just pray that everybody has a wonderful, abundant life, reaches all their goals and dreams in this business, because it is a rewarding business. And I'm just thankful.
And how can someone get hold of you?
Instagram, I'm at Phenom Investor. YouTube, Matt Garabedian. I have a podcast on iTunes called the Phenom Investor Blueprint, where I talk a lot about my faith and some of the stuff I shared with today, along with some business stuff. I'm an open book, guys. I'll tell you the wins, my losses, where I'm not good and where I'm great at. So please reach out to me. I am coaching some folks, helping them grow their business and help them and develop as leaders and men.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys for watching.